In this episode, we will try to look at the iteration statement in the Python programming language. And the first iteration statement is for loop. In fact, in our life, sometimes we need to repeat a task multiple times. So iteration is part of our life, and it is the same concept in the programming. So the for loop is a fundamental control structure in programming that allows you to execute a block of code repeatedly for a specific number of times or over a sequence of elements. So in fact, you can run a group of codes or block of code for multiple times, or you can run a specific operation on each element of, for example, a sequence. It is an essential tool for automating tasks that involve iteration, as I mentioned, exactly, especially for the collection data types such as a list, string, or range, and we will look at them with multiple examples. So the main structure or syntax for loop is look like that. For variable in sequence. So in fact, this variable is a loop variable, and each time the Python interpreter assign one element from this sequence to the variable. So, and then we will run the code and it will return to the sequence and select the next element, and it will assign the next element to the variable, and it will continue. So if you want to break down the whole process, there is a 4-step to run a loop for loop. The first step is initialization, when the loop start by assigning the first element of the sequence to the loop variable. So this is the initialization. After the initialization, it is an iteration. This block of code, it can be a one line or maybe multiple statement or lines. So using the current loop variable, we will run the code, and it is the iteration. And then updating, when the interpreter run the code, it will return to the sequence and pick the next element in the sequence, and it will assign these element to the variable. And we can continue again, run the code for this variable. And there is a termination, so the loop continue until all elements in the sequence have been processed. So when we finish with all elements, the loop will be terminated and the next statement will be run. Let's see some examples. This first example is using a for loop to print all the character inside a string. If you want, for example, print each character in one line in the string. So we have a hello Python, and we put this string, assign this value to the variable text. Then we said for character in text, print character. In fact, this text, which is a string, is a collection of characters, and for the first step it will select the h and it will assign the h to the character, and then we will print the h in one line, and then we will go back, and then the loop will assign the e to the character, and then we will print the character e, and so on until we reach the end of the string. I will show you that one when I try to show the whole examples together and run them together. Another example, using a for loop to print number within a range. So range is really important. This is a function that it will generate a range of number, and you can pass a start and end, and it will generate number between the start to the end. So in this case, it will generate numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last number will be excluded, which is a 6. So in fact, we have a series, a list of number, and each time we'll assign one of those number to the num, and we will print that one. So for the first time, it will print 1, then it will print 2, 3, and so on. Using a for loop to iterate through sequences like list. If you have a list, for example, in this case, we created a list of fruits. So we call the list fruits, apple, banana, cherry, and then we want to print a string or print a message using each element. So for the first time, we said for fruit in fruits, print I like fruit. So in fact, for the first time, the first item from the fruits, which is apple, will be allocated to the fruit, and it will print I like apple. Then we will go back and it will assign the banana to the fruit, and then it will come back and it will print I like banana, and so on until the end of the list. Using a for loop to calculate sum of numbers in a list. So if you have a list of number such as that, so 37194, this is a list of numbers. To calculate the sum of those numbers, we created another variable. At the beginning we assign 0, then we said for num in numbers, then add this num to the sum and put the result again inside the sum. If you remember, this is a plus equal, and it is equal to writing sum equal sum plus num. So in fact, the loop will try to assign the 3 at the first time, and then 3 plus 0 will be 3. It will put the 3 inside the sum, and then it will go up and assign the 7 to the num, and then 7 plus 3, because sum was 3, so it will be 10, and it will put 10 inside the sum, and then it will go up and assign 1 to the num, and then add 1 to the 10, and it will be 11, and assign the 11 to the sum, and it will continue the whole process to calculate the sum of those numbers. There's a two statement. One of them is break that we need to know. Break is we can use the break to immediately terminate the execution of a loop, regardless of whether the loop condition has been satisfied or not. So for example, in this case, so break will break the whole loop if we can check almost, I think always we try to check a condition, and if the condition is satisfied, we will break the loop. In this case, for example, we try to create a range of numbers. So the number will be 1 to 10 because the range is 1 to 11. And each time we will check the number. If the number is equal to 6, then we will break the loop. So in fact, this break statement exit the loop when num equal to 6. And in fact, each time we try to print the num. So the first time num will be 1. So because it's not equal to 6, we will print 1. And then we will go up to, because it's not equal to 6, we will print the 2, 3, 4, 5. So we will print until 5, but when it will reach the 6, so the num will be equal to 6 and it will break the loop. So in fact, the output of this statement or this piece of code will be number 1 to 5. We have another statement which is a continue. This statement we can use this statement to skip the current iteration of a loop and proceed to the next iteration. So in fact, if you don't want to do anything for specific statement or specific value in the sequence, you can use the continue. It is commonly used when you want to skip a specific iteration based on a condition but continue the loop with the remaining iteration. For example, in this case, we want to print even numbers and skip the odd numbers. So in fact, odd numbers, those numbers that if we try to divide them by 2, the remaining or the remainder will be 1. So in fact, we said for number in range 1 to 11. So in fact, the number will be 1 to 10. So the number, if the remainder of this division of the number by 2 is equal 1, it means this number is odd, is not even, and we will continue. But if the number is even, so the remainder will be 0, and this if statement will not be satisfied, so we will print the number. In fact, this statement print number 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, which they are even numbers. Such as a conditional statement or if statement, if you remember, we can have nested loops as well. So nested loops is a situation where one for loop is placed inside another for loop, and this is allowed to iterate through multiple dimension or level of data, and it is really a great way of creating sophisticated pattern of iteration. So if you have a multi-dimensional data, which is a common pattern in the specific machine learning and data science, so nested loop is one of the important concepts that you need to learn. Nested loops are especially useful when working with two-dimensional data structures such as a grid or matrices. So the overall syntax is look like that for variable. So we have a 2 or sometimes 4, 3, 4 or more loops, but let's consider just 2 nested loop. The first loop, we call that one outer loop, and there is an inner loop inside the outer loop. So each time when the Python interpreter try to run this code, the code that we have inside the loops in this code, in this case, this gray code. So it will assign the first element from the outer sequence to the outer variable. And then it will come inside and it will assign the first element from the inner sequence to the inner variable, and then it will run this code, and then it will return to the inner variable and it will continue the process with the inner loop until reaching the end of the inner sequence. So in fact, for each element in the outer sequence, we will run the whole for loop. We will visit the whole element inside the inner sequence. Let's see an example to understand the whole concept better. Generating a multiplication table using nested for loop. So for example, if you want to generate this table, what we did, we wrote 2 for loop, for I in range 1 to 11 and for j in range 1 to 11. So we want to print I times j. I will explain that one in later. Just let me to explain what is going on and what's happening. So for the first time, the outer loop will assign 1 to I will be 1. Then it will come inside the inner loop and it will assign 1 to j, and we will print 1 times 1, which is 1. And then it will go back and assign 2 to the j. J will be 2, it will print the 2. And then it will go up again and assign the 3 to j, and j is 3, I still 1. So 1 times 3 will be 3. And again it will goes up and assign 4 to the j, and I still 1. 1 times 4 will be 4, and so on until we reach the 10. So it will continue this process. When it reaches the 10, so we have all those numbers, and then we can print. In fact, using this print, we will push the next print to go to the new line, and we will go up, and now it will assign the 2 to I, and I will be 2, and then we will come inside. So then the Python interpreter will go up and it will assign 2 to the I, and it will return to the in-year loop, and it will assign 1 to j. So now I is equal to j equal 1, and then it will print 2 times 1, which is 2 in the new line, and then it will go up and assign 2 to the j. So now I is 2, j is 2, 2 times 2, it will be 4, and it will go up, assign 3 to the j, j is 3, I is 2, 2 times 3, it will be 6, and so on. So in fact, for each item inside the outer loop, we will iterate through all the item inside the inner loop, and it will print these table or multiplication table for us. So let's see all of those examples in a, I think I need to stop that one, in a Jupyter Notebook file. So I prepared this file to save time instead of typing. Let me to increase the size of the screen so you can see the screen a bigger, or the code just a little bit more. So what we can do, the first example is printing character of string. The same example, if you press the shift and enter, it will run the code for us, and as you can see, it will print each element in one line. In fact, it will extract the items of this string, which is a characters, and it will assign each character to the char, and then we will print this char. So this is the output of that one. And then if you go down in the second example, we want to print numbers between 1 to 5. So we created the range, and we said create number or generate series of number or range number between 1 to 6. So this is the start, this is the end, and it will generate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we print those number. So if you run the code, it will print 1 to 5. So one of the things I think I need to mention here, for example, let's check another, say, so if you want to print number between 10 to 20, so we need to put 21 as the end of the range. So I'm just trying to show you. Also, you can consider a step. For example, the first range function has 3 parameters or 3 value that you can pass. The first one is the start, the second one is the end. Then you can determine the steps. For example, if I put the 2 as a step, it will skip the odd number. So it will print the 10 and it skip 1, it will print the 12, it skip. So the step is 2. The default step is 1. Every time it will add 1 to the current. But if we add 2, so 10 plus 2 will be 12, 12 plus 2 will be 14, and so on. So if I run this code, as you can see, it will only print the even number. Or, for example, if you try to use the step as a tree, so it will be 10, 13, and so on. Let me to run 10, 13, 16, 19. So this is the range. So if I want to give you the syntax, so it has a start, it has an end, and it has a step that you can create a number. Next example, iteration through a list. For example, now we have a list of fruits, apple, banana, and cherry, and we want to pick each fruit. Every time we want to pick one of these fruit and print I like with the fruit. And as you can see, it will print I like apple for the first time. Why? Because as we mentioned, it will select the first or assign the first item to the fruit for the first time, and it will print I like with the fruit, which is apple. Then it will go to the fruits sequence and list, and it will pick the second item, which is banana. It will assign the banana to the fruit, and it will print the I like banana, and so on. Calculating sum of the number, if you remember, we explained that one, how to calculate the numbers, the sum of the number. For example, in this case, every time we try to select one of this number and assign one of these number to the num, and then calculate the sum. So if you like to see all the step, what you can do, you can print the information every time. So for example, we can say so also you can use the formatted string. Just to give you an idea, we can say number at the moment is, if you want to print value of a variable inside the string, you can use the curly brackets and put the variable right there, and then we will say sum now is equal to the value inside the sum. So this is a formatted string, and it will print the value inside this variable when we put the name of the variable inside the curly bracket. And if you try to run that, for the first time num is 3, so the sum will be 3. Second time num is 7, 7 plus 3, sum will be 10. Then num will be 1, and sum will be 10 plus 1, which is 11. And then 9, the next item, plus 11, it will be 20. Num equal 4, 4 plus 20, sum will be 24, and at the end we will print the sum, which is 24. Then creating a pattern, this is another things that you can use. For example, if you want to create a pattern, so in this case we said for I in range 1 to 6, so it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First time I will be 1, and we said print this character times I. How many times we want to print this? For the first time we want print just 1 star. For the second time I will be 2, and it will print 2 times of this character. Then I will be 3, and so on. So you can create some sort of patterns. Then another example, write the code to reverse a string. For example, input string is Python, output string is the reverse of Python. No TP. I cannot pronounce properly. So to do that, at the beginning, we ask the user to enter a string, and we put this string in a text. And we created a variable for reversed text. At the beginning is an empty string. And then we said for each character in this text, so we take the character that user entered. So the character from the string, and each time we will add this character at the beginning of the reversed string, and it will reverse the text for us. So for example, if we try to print these 2 items, so the character, to make it a formatted string, so if we print the character and the reversed text, each time it will be look like that. Okay, if you run that, so it will ask us to enter a text. Let's keep sample with the Python, and if you press that, so the first character, first time we will pick the P from this character, so the character will be P. The reversed text will be P. Then the second character will be Y and the character will be Y. The reversed character will be YP. Why? Because we add the character before the reverse text. So the reverse text was P. We add the Y to the P before the P, and it will be look like that. And then we will pick the for loop will be take the T and it will attach the T at the beginning and so on, and it will reverse the string for us. Counting vowels in a string, this is another sample. So for example, if you have a text look like that, all the vowels characters, we listed them here, A, E, I, O, U, A, E, I, O, U, so all of them listed, and the count is equal 0. And then we said for character in text, so this text, we will take these each character out of this text and we will put that one inside the character. If this character involves, so if you remember, this is the in, which is a membership operators. If you remember, we can check if this character exists in the vowels in this inside this string, then we will add 1 to the count and then we will print the number of the counts. You can play with that one and you will find out. So as you can see, we have E, we have O, we have O. So this is a 3 characters, vowel characters that we have. Finding prime numbers is another example. So a prime number is a number that is only divisible by itself and 1, nothing else. So how we can find prime number between 2 and 100? So what we did, we created a loop for number in range of 2 to 101. So in fact, it will start from 2 to 100. And the first number will be 2. And at the beginning, we said we assume this number is prime. So we said is prime equal true, because as a default, we said every number is prime, but we need to provide evidence for these hypothesis. So we said for I in range 2 and int num times 0.5 plus 1. So what this range will provide for us? This range will provide, let me to put that one, just let me to create another cell right here. I want to show you the output. So to create another cell, I want to, okay. If you want to create another cell, you can use the cell here, run cell or insert, sorry, from insert. You can use the insert cell above or below, or you can use the A and B to insert a new cell. So let's copy and paste that one. For example, if for the first time num is 2, if you run that, let's see what will be the output. Output will be that one. Let me to print the range instead of. So it will create a range 2, 2. So this range, in fact, is a it will generate just number 2, nothing else. So it will be nothing, in fact, because the beginning and the end is equal. But if the numbers is equal, for example, 3, or let's say 10, let's see what will happen if you choose that one. So the range will be 2 to 4. Why? Because 10 is only we can divide each number to the numbers between 2 and half of this number. So this is the half of the current number. So in fact, the half of this number plus 1, which will be 4 in this case. So we will try to calculate the exponential of the number by 0.5 and plus that one with 1. And then if we said if the number modular by I is equal 0, it means this number is divisible by I, and it will make our hypothesis to a false hypothesis. So because of that, so we know that this number is not a prime. We will break the loop, the second loop, and then we will check, because we converted this number to false. So if the is prime still true, we will say this number is it is a prime number. Otherwise, if the is prime value change inside this loop, we know that it is not prime number and we will not print that one. So if you run this code, you can see 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31, 37, and so on. So this is all prime numbers between 2 and 100. Hopefully you understand that one. If you couldn't understand, please try to run the code line by yourself, and you will find how it will work. So maybe let me to show you, or you can change that one, for example, for some samples, just between 1 to 5, and then you can find how it will calculate find the prime number. And the last example, I think the same things that I explained in the slides. When we want to print the multiplication table, if you look at that, the multiplication table will look like that. And so in fact, for I from 1 to 10, then for J in range of 1 to 10 again, so we will print the multiplication of those two items. So let me to make this one to a comment and bring that one run this command. Instead of printing all of them in a proper shape, I just want to show you how I and J will be changed. So if you run that one, so if you look at that, in the first time I is 1 and J will be 1. So multiplication of I and J, it will be 1. Then J will be increased and it will be 2. And I will be stay with 1. So as you can see, for each item in the outer loop, we will go through all the item in the inner loop and we will calculate. So this is a key concept that you need to know about the nested loop. Yeah, and there is some exercises. Print even numbers. I think you have the answer right now. So between 1 to 20. Factorial calculation. So write a program to calculate the factorial of a given number using a loop. And sum of digit, write a program that take a positive integer as an input and calculate the sum of its digit using a for loop. This is 3 exercises that you can write the code for them.